So today we want to talk that there are good ways to use large language models in a safe way. And what does this mean? When I talk with companies, I have met a lot of different approaches how they want to use large language models. And the easiest but unsafest way is to, I have an open AI API key. Can I just plug it in my solution and go for it? And of course, this is technically possible. And I think a lot of companies are doing this, and it's totally fine if you're not in a regulated industry and if this all is complying with your data protection laws and stuff like this. But you hear it between the lines. As soon as a company gets a little bit bigger or is also in other locations, in other regions where you have more stricter regulations on data privacy, on use of data, where does the data flow, and so on, then of course you cannot just plug in an API key from OpenAI or Anthropic and just use their hosting, because then you don't know, is it a shared environment? Where does the data go? Does the data flow between Europe and the US and so on and so forth? So there are a lot of question marks. And also I still feel all the companies want to use AI somehow, but nearly no company trusts the provider. So that's funny, because you want to use the technology, but you do not trust the provider. They all assume the data is used for training, and if you have sensitive data in your prompts, then you will have a data incident. While this could be, the fear is legit, there are some ways to mitigate it.
Well, I think it's a great framing, and then too, for anyone that hasn't seen kind of this series that we're doing now. My name is Hassan, and then David and I are co-founders here at Vylos AI. We do workshops, consulting, and implementation for AI. And what we're trying to do is really demystify AI and let folks know what's possible. A big thing that we see a lot of times is not knowing where to start or coming into different hurdles. So especially as we keep building these, feel free to ask us in the comments or write to us directly things you might want to know. And for today, we have a really exciting topic, which is around doing it securely and how you can use some of these models in a secure way. And there's a few different pathways that we'll uncover. I'm going to take the mindset of a learner's approach. So you'll hear me asking questions, some very beginner questions, which I want to help anyone that's at any point of their journey. And David, as he is already, is going to be an expert and continues to be himself an expert during our time together. So with that being said, we have this really exciting topic around large language models, LLMs, if you hear or see this term a lot, and the way that you can make that secure. And, a few things to call out for me is, there's the American market, the European market. And I think, David, you have experience between all of these different globally, from Australia to the US.
Australia, New Zealand, yeah.
And I guess, for you, what are the what's the most common question that folks have that you think should be known right away?
There are kind of, again, extremes in the mindset. Sometimes really they just want to use the API key they have and go for it, which is where I need to tell them that probably it's more complicated than this, because they don't want to have a data incident. And on the other side, there are companies which believe that this technology cannot be run in a safe and compliant way at all, which is also not true. So there are these extreme positions always. And like always, the truth is somewhere in between. And sometimes companies are really surprised when we tell them, didn't you know, probably you use Microsoft. Is this a vendor you have approved? And of course, everybody has Outlook. And then we say, probably you even have a Microsoft Azure account. So that's the cloud services from Microsoft. And then ask their team, we have this SharePoint, everything. And then we say, you can deploy a huge list of models in your Microsoft Azure instance, for example, or in your AWS Amazon account, or also Google Cloud has this already. So you can run your own model inside your own cloud provider in your own tenant in a secure way. And of course, all these providers swear to high heavens that none of this data is used for training purpose. So, and none of this data goes to the companies training the fundamental models. Probably, as you know, Microsoft has a cooperation with OpenAI. Even they invested heavily to have early access to the models from OpenAI, but they don't give them officially, they don't give them the data to train the fundamental. And so this is usually already enough, because then you have a model running in your cloud instance. No data is used for training. This model is not shared with some other tenants or users and so on. So there is no way that the data can flow over, or that there is a cache incident or something like this. And this is usually enough. And then they are quite surprised. So, oh, okay, I thought this was more complicated. And these cloud providers, they know their business. Usually it's literally just some clicks to have a provisioned instance, and all of them are OpenAI compatible with the API. Means it doesn't matter which model you use, if it's one of the more common ones like Gemini or Claude or GPT and so on. You can plug them in nearly any solution seamlessly.
Interesting. So just so that I can recap a little bit, is that APIs, for anyone that's listening, API, there's, as software goes, API is a way to call data between different platforms, right? It gives access to push and pull data between them. And so many times when David and I go to organizations, we check which APIs they have in place, which systems they have in place, so they can talk to each other. And then what you're saying, Dave, is that many times people start looking for lots of different options, but if they already have Google, for example, they already have a system in place that can kind of do a lot of this, or
Exactly.
whatever it might be. Is that right?
Absolutely. And even more surprising is the cloud providers kind of have all models in their catalog. So it doesn't mean only because I use Microsoft Azure, I'm bound to use the GPT or OpenAI models. They also have, for example, the Claude models, which you can use, or even a lot of these open source models, which are also available on other platforms like Hugging Face and so on. We have hundreds, or probably already thousands of models already out there in different shapes and forms and specializations. And so they have quite a huge catalog from which you can choose which model you want to use.
And so when we talk about highly regulated industries, I think of healthcare, finance, like those kind of industries. So, and also we should think about also GDPR in Europe, but then, for some of these really strict situations with these things in place, then is there something that you'd also recommend on top of kind of the general thoughts? Or?
Yeah, so even for regulated industries, usually it's enough if one of the cloud providers is approved for you. I know in Europe, even banking runs on AWS, for example, or in cloud providers. So even highly regulated industries can go there. But still, there are some industries which are beyond that. So if you think about defense, of course, sometimes automotive industries, even while they have stuff on the clouds, some more sensitive data is not on the big cloud platforms. They have their own data centers, and still there are a lot of companies which run their own data centers, because that's the maximum security you can have in terms of when you have the staff and the team to take care about it. So not to be dependent on the big cloud providers. And also in Europe, there is a tendency from companies that they really want to go back in their own environments, even have their own servers and run them really physically, locally on the continent. And yeah, there are ways where you can host these models yourself then. Of course, it's like always in software, build or buy and run it yourself, or have a vendor do this for you. So it comes with advantages and disadvantages. So the advantages, of course, in highly regulated industries, you could run these models within your environment, even kind of offline. So they do not need an internet connection. For example, there are some IoT devices, edge devices, or even regions where you don't have internet access, and still you want to run these models in these environments. And this is also possible today. So there are it depends on the use case. So if it's single user and only one request from one user or small user group, then you have something like Olama or Llama CPP, which are smaller frameworks where you absolutely can run your own models very conveniently. And then you have more mature frameworks like VLLM, which really gives you the infrastructure to run large language models with a lot of nodes, and where you can decide how the model is distributed over your clusters and which GPUs they use and so on. So you hear between the lines, this gets complicated. But the interesting thing is you can use smaller models, more on-point models. You don't need the general fundamental trillion, billion, whatever parameter things if you just want to structure data. So you have smaller specialized models. You can run them on your own hardware with your in your own environment, and also you don't have the risk that if your provider just decides to make the token 100 times more expensive, that your business case goes up in flames or that your infrastructure costs explode. So you have the control of the cost because you rent a machine, and if you max it out, then you need more machines, but you will not be surprised by usage-based pricing.
I think the main thing that I'm hearing is like there's a lot when it comes to choosing a solution and doing it in a safe way, there's lots of different options. So people have the chance to pick something that there's already on their system that's already been through their InfoSec process. They can, look at the different models that might connect inside of that, do different calls to systems with APIs to get the information they need. And then also maybe as the future and moving forward, more and more organizations might start using smaller versions that fit specific needs that are secure, that are not going to go up and up with the cost over time. And as we wrap up a little bit, I'm curious, is there, out of all the things that we covered in this short amount of time, is there any kind of last thing that you feel like leaders or people making these decisions should know when it comes to LLMs and security, or the safest way to do that?
Yeah, so the conclusion is there are absolutely safe ways to run large language model, this technology, in a safe environment with data privacy at first. So it's absolutely there. And also there in the tech sphere and in the tech community, there are strong efforts to democratize this technology in a way that people get the data sovereignty back, that they can build their own little software solutions with their own models running on their own hardware without even needing internet access. So they're as funny as it sounds, there is a chance in this technology to give the data sovereignty back to the user. And this is something very interesting consumer and companies should have in mind also for future architecture decisions.
Cool. Yeah, that's so super helpful to learn. And I think something that, again, we're trying to have these conversations in public more and more in this way to let people know, because it's kind of funny. I think, David, like me and you have we talk to lots of people each and every week, and then it's one at a time, people learning. So we're really trying to spread the news, let people know. And no matter where you are in your journey, if you're just starting off or you just want to have some questions, we're also going to try to give goodies every time that we do these. So we're going to do something like an audit for people, or you can jump on a call with us. And we really want to be helpful because we really think that it's the chance for technology to change companies, change organizations, and change things for the better. And so thanks again, David, for sharing your ideas, and let's talk again soon.
Yeah, thank you for the conversation. Yeah, see you soon. Bye.